great day and welcome back to my channel. So as you can probably see in the title, I want to talk about my journey through therapy so far. I also want to discuss some upsides and downsides to therapy, the difference between private and public therapy, and the Australian health system when it comes to mental health. Just a quick disclaimer that whatever I'm going to be talking about is my opinion, not anybody else's, and it is not fact. So my journey started in August of 2018 when I finally opened up to my mum about my struggles. Now, my mother has always been super supportive and does whatever she can to help us. So I booked an appointment with my GP and we both went to sit down and have a discussion about what's going on. Right off the bat, I got a diagnosis of OCD and panic disorder. My mother asked about any possible psychotherapy treatments, and so my GP gave me a mental health care plan. I'm not sure about other countries, but in Australia, your GP can give you a mental health care plan. This allows you to get 6 free sessions with a psychologist. If that's not enough, the treating professional writes a letter to your GP, you go back to your GP, and you can claim another 4 free sessions. You can renew your mental health care plan each year. So you get 10 free sessions every year. Unfortunately, for most chronic conditions, that is nowhere near enough. It is from my beliefs that the government has calculated that 10 free sessions is enough for somebody to get through any struggles that they are having. That generally includes things like mild anxiety or exam stress or losing a loved one. So I was given one of these mental health care plans and I was started on some medication. At this point in time, I wasn't ready to start therapy, so medication was really all I had. So in early October, I went back to my GP to let them know that the medication that I was on, even though that we had increased the dosage, wasn't having an effect. And at this point in time, I was unable to go to university at all. My mother then asked for a referral to a psychiatrist, which he gave us. So by late October, I had an appointment with the psychiatrist and I was started on some new medication. He also recommended that I went to therapy, but again, I was just not ready for that yet. Now this medication definitely had an effect on me. So a couple of weeks after starting this medication, I went to the Gidgee show, which is a very small version of the Royal show that we have in Perth. So there's lots of stalls, there's lots of rides, there's a lot of things to do. And my dad had to drag me around the showgrounds because I couldn't walk. This medication was making me so tired that I couldn't stay on my feet in the middle of the day. So in terms of my anxiety, I actually think it was working because I was too tired to be anxious. So I think it's about a 20-minute car drive there, and I fell asleep on the car ride there, I fell asleep on the car ride back, I got into the house and I fell asleep again. I was so tired that I would constantly fall asleep in the car. And even if my mum took a corner slightly too hard and I bashed my head against the window, I didn't wake up. My mum finally woke me up when we got there and I had this massive headache and I didn't know why until she told me. I'm sure there's lots of interesting stories about when I was on this medication, but I very quickly went back to the psychiatrist and he took me straight off. I think that this was the point in time that we realized that if there were side effects of a medication, I was most likely going to get them. So when I said very quickly went back to the psychiatrist, it was about 2 months after I initially started this medication. So now we're in December, I'm on my 3rd set of medications to try, and I have a new diagnosis from the psychiatrist. So he gave me a diagnosis of panic disorder, depressive disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder. For some reason, OCD wasn't what he diagnosed me with, which was very confusing as this is what the medication was primarily used to combat. And he was always asking about my OCD, so I just feel like that was an error. So, the new year arrives, it's 2019, and I feel as if I am ready to start therapy. So, in January, I go to my GP and I ask for a referral to Headspace. So for those of you who don't know, Headspace is an Australian organisation that offers a range of services to young people. I'm pretty sure the age range is from about 12 to 25. The services that they offer are free for those 10 sessions that you get in your mental health care plan. So after submitting my referral in January, I got my first appointment in March. So I continued with my therapy, having about 1 session a week until late April, early May, where I had finished my first 6 sessions. So after those 6 sessions where I have to go back to my GP and get another referral for the next 4, I didn't really see much improvement. But due to my anxiety, I didn't really want to go and ask for someone else. So by July, I had used up all of my sessions. And the last 4 were really not helpful at all. In those last few sessions, my psychologist would briefly mention a few things and then talk about the fact that we would go into them more when I transferred to his private practice. Now, when he first brought up his private practice, I told him that I would talk to my mum. But I never definitively said that I would go, because when he was talking to me about it, he mentioned that every single session would cost $160. Now, due to health insurance, I might get about $30 off, but that's still $130 a week. There was no way that we could afford that. And then my GP got a letter from my psychologist saying, this is what we did in these 10 sessions, and this is what we're going to be focusing on when she transfers to my private practice. Again, I never said I would. Actually, by the last session, I said that I couldn't afford it. So for the next couple of months, I had nothing. My 10 sessions were up, I couldn't afford to go private, so there was nothing for me. But in late October, I went back to my GP and he actually referred me to a place called CAMHS. So CAMHS stands for Children and Adolescents Mental Health Services. It's a government organisation which provides free mental health care for children under the age of 18. So I had to wait a couple of months for my first appointment and I got it in about mid-December. It was recommended that I had an initial 3 months of cognitive behaviour therapy mixed in with exposure response prevention therapy. Again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't really want to go through these different therapies because I'm just not qualified. So during that appointment, I was given yet another batch of diagnoses. So I was diagnosed with OCD, depression, and social anxiety. So in late February, I was able to meet with their psychiatrist. I mentioned that the medication I was on was making me quite tired. I had to take multiple naps a day, but it wasn't as bad as the medication I had before. So we came up with a plan to reduce that medication and take me off it completely before starting a new one again. The psychiatrist also gave me another lot of diagnoses, and they are chronic mixed anxiety, depression, OCD, social anxiety, and social isolation. And then we hit March of 2020. So my mum got a phone call from CAMHS. And this is to let her know that due to COVID-19, they were discharging all non-urgent patients. Their reasoning was that they needed the space just in case people were being affected by the lockdown due to COVID-19. I didn't fully agree with that, but that's not something I really want to go into. So following that discharge, I went straight to my GP and got another referral back to Headspace. I then had to wait until late May, early June before I got my first appointment there. So this is where I'm at now. I'm 7 sessions in with this psychologist. I'm seeing signs of improvement. We've been discussing things that other psychologists have not really wanted to, and I'm just happy that I'm seeing some improvement. Now, after my 10 sessions, what am I gonna do? The answer is I have no idea. I can't afford private therapy and I can't go back to CAMHS because by the time I get a referral in, I'm going to be 18. So this is something that I'm gonna have to look at really soon, but I just can't see any option at the moment. So some of the problems I had with all of this was the fact that I always had to ask for referrals. They were never offered to me. And places like CAMHS, they don't tell you about them. You kind of have to hear about it through the grapevine. And the problem with Headspace is that you're not paying for anything. So sometimes the psychologist will leave partway through your treatment. And every time your treating professional leaves or you run out of your sessions, you have to start the treatment again. I'm currently on my 3rd psychologist and I've only got a couple of sessions left. So I'm probably gonna have to start again next year. Hopefully with some of the things that they have gone through with me, I don't have to start right at the beginning, but I can't continue from where I left off. Now, I understand that there is help available for people suffering with their mental health in Australia, and that's better than other countries, but it doesn't mean that it's enough. You get 10 free sessions a year. Even if you space them out to 1 every 2 or 3 weeks, that might not even take you up to June. And it feels like if you can't afford private therapy, you're on your own. And that's not good for people suffering with mental health. So that is my journey so far through therapy. And unless you're going private, it's not that straightforward and it's quite difficult to get the help that you need. And some things that you hear are quite frustrating. Recently in Australia, they have put so much money towards mental health for people who are suffering with COVID. In Australia, if your mental health has been suffering due to the pandemic, you can access free mental health care as far as I know. But you can't access it if your mental health issues are not from just the pandemic. It doesn't make much sense to me because people with underlying mental health conditions are also suffering. I mean, this pandemic barely affects me now because I live in Western Australia, so I'm pretty lucky there's really no lockdowns here. But if there was a lockdown and someone someone was suffering because of the lockdown and normally they're alright, they had access to free mental health care. And that's free mental health care that I couldn't get. In fact, due to this pandemic, I was practically kicked out of CAMHS. My therapy stopped. I don't know, I'm just one person. I can't really make all of these changes myself. I think that more money should be put towards mental health, but again, I don't know the budgets, I don't know where money should be allocated, so I can't really say much about these things. So to wrap it up, if you can't afford private therapy and you're trying to get therapy for a chronic condition, it's tough. So I really hope that you either learned something from this video or took something away from it, or both. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more content. Anyway, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!